Yo ho, it's Buck in your Scott.
Behold, the rotunda of books.
Hello and welcome to competitive swashbooking. This is my brother Jonathan. My name is James Bach. We are buccaneering intellectuals and we love to read books and have thoughts. Anyway, 115 books you see before you on these shelves. And this is what competitive swashbooking is. Over the next 8 hours, Jonathan and I, independently, will prepare an oratory that uses these books as references, as sources. Neither of us have read these books up to now. So we have to scout the information that is in these books and prepare some kind of argument, persuasive oratory that will then be judged by my son Oliver, and we'll see who's the winner.
Are there any rules to this competition?
Yeah, we can take books, we can move books, but neither of us can hoard books from the other. We have to use these books. Ready to start?
I'm ready to start.
Begin! Begin! We have 8 hours total. The clock begins now. These will be our sources.
Books about teaching and learning, books about scientific method, books about rationality and thinking, books about communication, more communication books, history of science, history in general, miscellaneous books about thinking and heuristics and chess and philosophy, crystals and new agey stuff, dogs, animals, and life.
The finest books of Western civilization. My strategy is to go for diversity. Start with the books that I know least about, that are the weirdest subjects. Move toward books that I know more about and that are less weird for me. So I began with animal books. And then later, the next thing I'll do is go with the crystal energy healing books.
So I went to the library and I, just like being in a bookstore, I tried to pick the books that resonated with the theme that I've got in my head, and that is, what should I do next in my career? Where is there a pattern that emerges in these books? So I have a book on guesstimation, a book on belief systems, 3 Signs of a Miserable Job, a book on influencing, a book on how things go wrong, a book on stumbling on happiness, storytelling, and discarded science. And so far, I've only scouted these 3, so I'm a little concerned because I find them so readable and digestible toward my theme that I'm worried that I better make my focus a little more narrow.
I feel slow. I gotta step it up. Time's a wasting, it's ticking away. I'm getting too engrossed in these books. I need to just go through them really fast. And I feel disorganized. I look at my brother over there, he's got index cards and post-its. He's planning the North African campaign. Meanwhile, I've got 2 pages of notes, that's it. And while my back was turned, my dog Shasta ate half my notebook. What do I really know about Shasta? Is she on my side? You know, I always feel slow when I start a research project, but I don't think that's a problem. I think it's just the way that my mind works. It needs to encompass a great amount of material before organization can set in. And I need to take a few notes, and I need to be careful about the dog. I need to keep the dog away from my homework.
There's 2 hours and 21 minutes to go, and I found an anchoring paradigm.
I look at what John's done. He's got index cards all over the table.
How I'm going to connect the 35 or so books that I've read.
He has newsprint with networks all over it. Notes. Looks like Beautiful Mind.
Feeling good going into the home stretch, and maybe another 20 books and I'll be done.
And I have a notebook with 3 pages where I've made notes in it. I'm gonna nail it!
I saw some research that sleep can help learning. So at this point, I took a nap.
I think I figured out what my theme is. I see what unites these books. Now I just have to read another 50 of them and get everything all set. Because we got an hour left. But I think what unites all these books is the theme, what is man? Time is out. Behold the oratory. Fetch the orators. Here we have Judge Hang 'em High Oliver. Behind him, Lenore. Homeschooling mom Lenore. And the 2 dogs of justice, bailiffs in this courtroom. Jonathan, you shall go first.
When this journey began at 9 a.m. today, I went to the well. I went to the library, and I picked books that I felt resonated with my anchoring mission, which is what and how to do next in light of a layoff that I may be facing at work. So I was looking for inspiration, guidance, coincidence, ideas, and from all kinds of sources. But the first thing I did was pick about 8 books that I felt I would really go to if I was really in a bookstore, but probably in the philosophical or self-help section. Okay. But as I started scouting those books, those first 8, I wrote a lot of notes at the very beginning. In fact, this section right here is just raw notes, me writing down thoughts. Every index card is a separate book where I took notes. By the end of the day, I had scouted 47 books. And those are the raw things, the epiphanies that I came up with when I was reading and scouting. Okay, so did not read the book cover to cover, merely scouted it. You can call it skimming or scanning, but I was scouting toward a theme. What and how do I do next in light of a layoff I may be facing? So I put that mission in the center of this map. And late in the day, I noticed in my notes a pattern emerging. That there were, on each post-it note here in each category, there is the list of books that I scouted. And I noticed that certain books helped me feel anchored and validated in my current situation. Then there were books that had to do with belief systems. There were books that had to do with biology, or that is the state of the world that I felt I was in. Then there were books having to do with facts and science. There were books having to do with story and the importance of story, and books that had a compelling story to talk about their theme. There were books that inspired me, that I said inspiration, or focused on inspiration. There were books on reasoning, okay, that I felt led me to a perspective shift. And last, there were books that I felt focused on alternatives and ideas. So the flow goes like this. Here's my starting point, where I am today in my life, and taking stock of what comprises my belief systems, what is my world, what's my biology, what's my knowledge, what's the story that may be emerging, how am I inspired, how does that lead to a perspective shift, reasoning, and what do I do next? One of the books that I read one of the books that I scouted, which actually lays out 8 different patterns of thinking, of things to consider in philosophy. And they very closely mapped the pattern, the 8 that I saw. So they talk about things in terms of knowledge, mind, free will, the self, God, reasoning, the world, and what to do. And so I was really inspired by that. So I put an alternate title up there that matches this. Knowledge, mind, free will, the self, God, inspiration, reasoning, or what I call perspective shift was my title, and what to do, which is alternatives and ideas. So from my reading, I listed the books, and I also looked at, I did a pattern analysis of where some of the books appeared in the same category. Like Learned Optimism, I circled in green. So it helped me be anchored and validated in my current state, the things that I read. But it also helped me understand my belief system. It also gave me a sense of what my biases and what my limitations might be as I'm subject to the biology of the world. I also put it in the category of story because it had some stories, some sidebars in there. It's also, I put it in the inspiration one. So it is the one book I felt had all of the different patterns that connected me to my mission. It just, after 47 books, this is what emerged. So the things that support my argument, I put, 8 or 9 different quotes from readings during the day to justify their position in each of these little buckets.
Well, then it was my turn. And what I did is I laid out all the books, my 46 books that I had gone through, in a big spiral on the floor. And I've reproduced this spiral in a diagram that I've posted online at Prezi.com. Here it is. And my theme was, what are we? What are we? And all the books that I covered, I thought, with different aspects of that question. For instance, all the crystal books and the energy healing books dealt with what are we? Maybe humans are vibrational energy life forms, and metaphor was their language. But a few of those books dealt more scientifically with it, like the energy healing experiments, for instance, that dealt with scientific experiments of energy healing effects. Then there were animals, animal Reiki, crystal healing for animals. And humans and their relationships with animals becomes important. And these books here are books about raising puppies, and they deal with humans as being the masters of animals. The books right next to them deal with humans and animals in partnerships as part of one system. Animals Make Us Human, for instance, by Temple Grandin. Then we go down to cells and biosystems. The Lives of a Cell, or Mark Bittman's Food Matters, talks about humans and their relationship with all the cells and all the biomes of the earth. And then Darwin dealt with that same thing, and he dealt with evolution too. So there were several books that were surrounding evolution. But as soon as you get into evolution, you get into reasoning, and the way humans reason is mostly irrational, very much irrational. Books like Predictably Irrational deal with that question. That led into books about learning, because we're not consciousnesses that are static. We're consciousnesses in evolution ourselves. So we have evolution on a level of consciousness. And then that gets into society. And these are the books by the philosophers, the old philosophers that talked about politics and society and human societies in evolution. And all that led up to philosophers and philosophies, and the book Charts of Philosophies and Philosophers. What are we? Then it was time for the judging. I thought Oliver was just going to render a judgment right away, but he wasn't so sure. He pondered, and then he began asking some questions.
How does mind and free will, how are they different? Would that be understood? How does knowledge relate to free will? And how does that determine whether you're going to, what would you do in the later layout? How does reasoning perspectives go into what to do and alternatives? What do you have under alternatives and ideas?
Wow. You have to bear in mind that Oliver doesn't go to school and spends all of his time playing video games. But you know who else didn't go to school? Socrates. And now it's my turn to face Socrates.
How is born to believe related to thinking and learning? Because it seems more like we're born to believe, so we're not thinking. When I look at that book, I think it's not so much about thinking about us, but thinking about how we think about us. Spiritual to spiritual animals to science. As you're learning, what can you take from the spiritual section, and how does that relate to the previous, or if this gone full circle, how does that relate to the learning and thinking? Alright, well, we have two very, very different arguments and two very different ways of representing them, although they go in a very circular pattern. Well, James did a very good job, but I felt that some parts were incomplete, possibly due to rushing and lack of time. For instance, the lack of the utopian section, and the stark contrast between science and rational thinking, or irrational thinking. And then with Jonathan's, we have what to do next in light of a layoff, but it seems so much more than that. Not what to do next in light of a layoff, but maybe you don't have to do anything at all, and the evaluation of whether or not you have to do anything. So they seem to be proving very different points, and it's hard to judge them. But I think James wins.
Sir, I will yield. Oh! Woohoo! What's that cheering?
Okay, dogs, calm down.
Calm down, dog.
That was pretty good.
Let the dogs attack everyone.
Yeah, let the dogs attack my work. Eat up. No.
I win the victory, dogs.